You've probably heard that if you want to build muscle, you need to bulk, which means that you just stuff your face with as much food as possible to build a ton of muscle. If you're unfortunate enough to have tried this, you probably also know that it's just not true. You do end up gaining some muscle, but you also have to end your bulk sooner than expected because you just end up putting on a bunch of body fat. I experienced this in college when I tried the GOMAD diet, which is where you drink a gallon of milk every single day. Without going into too much detail, let's just say it didn't go that well. It's true that to gain substantial amounts of muscle, you do have to be in a calorie surplus, which means that you eat more calories than your body burns, and as a result, you'll gain weight in the process. Having excess calories provides an anabolic stimulus, which is helpful for muscle growth. For example, data from this 2022 meta-analysis shows that restricting calories negatively affects muscle growth compared to being at maintenance or in a surplus. Although being in a calorie surplus will help you maximize muscle growth, it'll also result in some fat gain since the excess energy is not fully allocated towards building muscle. Instead, some of it is used to build muscle and some of it is stored as body fat. So, your goal when bulking should be to maximize muscle growth while minimizing the amount of fat you gain. But how do you actually do that? Well, the first question that we need to address is how fast should you actually gain weight? Your rate of weight gain is one of the variables that will influence how much muscle you gain relative to body fat. In general, slower weight gain results in gaining more muscle as a proportion of the total weight gain compared to fast weight gain. In other words, if you gain 5 pounds in 5 weeks, you'll gain more body fat and less lean mass compared to gaining the same 5 pounds in 15 or 20 weeks. Of course, that's assuming that you're training hard as well. Part of this is due to the fact that muscles grow at a very slow rate, and there may even be a cap to the rate at which your muscles can grow, which means that eating more beyond a certain point will not result in faster muscle growth. So, to optimize your bulk, you want to gain weight at a slow pace that allows you to bulk for a long time, 6 to 9 months at least, without gaining substantial amounts of body fat. Your rate of weight gain should be heavily influenced by your training status as well as your propensity to build muscle. In general, newer lifters as well as individuals with good muscle building genetics can get away with gaining weight at a quicker rate simply because they're able to gain muscle much faster. If you train hard, you'll gain the most amount of muscle in your first year of lifting, with every subsequent year resulting in less muscle gain, unfortunately. For example, throwing out random numbers here. If you gain 15 pounds of muscle your first year of training, you may only gain 10 pounds your second year and 5 pounds your third year if you're lucky. Since more experienced lifters gain muscle at a much slower rate, it makes sense for them to gain weight at a very slow rate as well. Alright, that being said, let me give you some actual recommendations in terms of how quickly you should gain weight. To be completely transparent, these recommendations are not based on hard scientific evidence, since truthfully we don't have much concrete data on the optimal rate of weight gain for building muscle. Instead, these recommendations are based on my experience going through this journey myself, as well as my experience working with dozens of clients. For most people, gaining weight at a rate of 0.2 to 0.4% of total body weight per week is a good starting point. Some individuals may benefit from gaining weight slightly faster or slower depending on their training status and propensity to build muscle. Let's take a look at two scenarios. A 200-pound male gaining weight at a rate of 0.2 to 0.4% of total body weight per week would gain approximately 0.4 to 0.8 pounds of body weight per week. Similarly, a 125-pound female would gain a quarter to half a pound per week at the same rate, since the starting body weight is much less. Gaining weight at this rate over a 6-month period would result in 10 to 20 pounds gained for the 200-pound male and 6 to 12 pounds for the 125-pound female, which is much slower than your typical bulk. This rate of weight gain can easily be accomplished by being in a slight surplus of 200 to 300 calories above maintenance per day. If you're unsure about how to calculate your caloric requirements, make sure to check out my video titled "How many calories do you need to get lean?" I'll link it in the description of this video. For most people, I'd recommend erring on the side of caution and gaining weight on the lower end of this range, closer to 0.2% per week. However, if you're newer to lifting or gain muscle relatively quickly, you may get away with being closer to the higher end of this range. Okay, next let's actually discuss how to track your weight gain progress over time and tailor your caloric intake to ensure that you're on target with your goals. After determining the rate of weight gain that you'd like to target, you need to track your body weight over time. I recommend keeping track of your average weekly body weight and comparing averages over time. You can easily do this on an Excel sheet, which is what I do. Make sure to weigh yourself in the morning after using the bathroom and drinking or eating anything. This way you'll have the most accurate reading possible of your actual body weight. You can weigh yourself daily if you'd like, but weighing yourself just 3 to 4 times per week should suffice as well. Next, just plug your weight into an Excel sheet where you're going to track it over time. After collecting a week's worth of data, simply take the average average body weight for that week and compare it to the previous week's average. Your body weight average will rarely be exactly the same as your targeted weight, but it should be pretty close. I like to target within plus or minus 0.2 pounds. For example, if your average body weight this week was 180 pounds and your targeted rate of weight gain is 0.4 pounds per week, you'd expect to weigh 180.4 pounds next week. Using a range of plus or minus 0.2 pounds from your target weight, your next week's average should fall between 180.2 and 0.6 pounds. Over time, if you keep your caloric intake the same, you'll notice that your weight gain will start to slow down. This is because as you gain weight, your energy expenditure also increases. So what do? You'll have to slowly increase your caloric intake whenever your weight gain begins to slow down to maintain your targeted rate of weight gain. For example, if your targeted rate of weight gain is half a pound per week, and in the past couple of weeks you've only gained 0.2 pounds on average, then you should probably increase your caloric intake by an additional 1 to 200 calories. The opposite is true as well. If you're gaining weight too quickly, you should slightly decrease your caloric intake to slow down your rate of weight gain. Now, people tend to freak out if they randomly gain too much weight in 1 week and make drastic changes to their caloric intake in response, which also isn't the smartest thing to do. Keep in mind that our body weight can fluctuate drastically from day to day based on a number of variables including stress, sleep, travel, what you ate the previous day, inflammation, and constipation. That's a lot of stuff, right? You could be doing everything correctly with your diet and randomly wake up 2 to 3 pounds heavier from one day to the next. This obviously doesn't mean that you've gained 2 to 3 pounds of fat, it just means that some of the extraneous variables that influence your body weight are playing a factor. This is the main reason why tracking your weekly body weight average is more accurate than tracking your body weight on a daily basis. It's because weekly averages account for these random fluctuations in body weight. Nonetheless, your body weight could still be artificially inflated one random week for a number of reasons. So how do you deal with this, and how do you know whether it's an appropriate time to make changes to your caloric intake? Well, you need to learn how to look at trends in your body weight over time. For example, if you've been gaining weight consistently at about half a pound per week for the past 4 weeks, but this week you randomly gained 4 pounds and yet you haven't made any changes to your caloric intake or your physical activity, it's unlikely that you've actually gained that much weight, and you probably shouldn't make any changes to your plan. It's probably best to stay calm, keep everything the same, and see what happens to your body weight the week after. It'll likely come back down and correct itself. With my clients, I typically wait until there are 2 consecutive weeks when their weight changes different than what I'd expect it to be before making any actual changes to their plan. Alrighty guys, to quickly summarize this video, if you want to bulk and gain muscle without putting on a bunch of fat, it's important that you gain weight at a slow and consistent rate so that your bulk can last at least 6 to 9 months. Gaining weight at a rate of 0.2 to 0.4% of total body weight per week is pretty good for most people and can easily be accomplished by being in a slight surplus of around 200 to 300 calories per day. You should track your progress by tracking your weekly average body weight over time, and over time you will have to increase your caloric intake in response to your weight gain slowing down. Lastly, don't make any drastic changes from just 1 week to the next. Your weight will fluctuate randomly from time to time. Wait for your weight to be off track for 2 consecutive weeks before making any changes to your plan. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It helps me a ton. Peace.